Do you need help with marketing, new clients, or online reviews? Massage Book is your solution, streamlining all the challenging aspects of your massage therapy practice. This powerful software simplifies scheduling, payments, and marketing, allowing you to focus on what you do best, helping clients live better. Plus, sign up now with code ABMP50 and get $50 off after your free 30-day trial. Visit massagebook.com, create an account, and transform your practice today. That's Massage Book with code ABMP50 for $50 off. Don't wait. Give it a shot today. Are you looking for a company that empowers your growth and development? Look no further than the Elements Massage brand, where all massage therapists have the opportunity to thrive through the Elements Massage Career Advancement Program. In the Elements Massage Career Advancement Program, Elements Massage Studios recognize, reward, and uplift their massage therapists, rewarding continuous learning, commitment, and growth. The Elements Massage Career Advancement Program includes professional, elite, and master levels, where massage therapists will enjoy higher commission rates, access to continuing education and development opportunities, and unique career growth opportunities to propel them toward a successful future. Evaluate your career and apply to an Elements Massage studio today. Visit elementsmassage.com/careers and take the first step towards a fulfilling journey. That's elementsmassage.com/careers.
I don't play tennis. Correction, I play, but I'm not very good. It does seem to be a part of my life, even though it's not my forte. My grandmother played. She was incredible, actually. She grew up in England and made it all the way to the junior championships at Wimbledon at age 18. And so my mom grew up playing. Eventually, obviously, she met my dad, and he, as luck would have it, played tennis too. So they tried to get me to play, and I did, and I enjoyed it. But I was never very good. Fast forward a few decades and I meet my partner. I don't know what to call him. Partner, boyfriend, side salad. Boyfriend sounds so weird at this age, but you get the picture. And guess what? He plays tennis, as do his 2 teenage sons. And there is some talent in that there gene pool. We go out on the tennis courts together sometimes, and it's like I am on a big wheel tipping over if I go too fast when I try to turn, and they are like Lamborghinis, sleek, smooth, and moving at a pace so fast that it looks like a blur to me. The tables turn, though, when we stop playing and get home. There's a whole lot of tennis elbow happening in my house. So while I may not be an expert on the courts, I know a thing or two about tennis elbow. The best part is that while I have studied this topic and understand it from a researched and therapeutic perspective, getting to witness it on this level is like a meteorologist finding themselves in the untouched, intact building after a tornado ripped through town, feeling awful for those around me, but also excited to dive in. Tennis elbow, just to clear things up, is a pain one might feel in the elbow after a little too much tennising. And if it was that simple, we'd be done and everyone could move on. But it's not that simple. It never is it? Tennis elbow, more technically referred to as lateral epicondylitis, is really a tendinitis or a tendinosis, or is it a tendinopathy? I'm so glad you asked. Let's start by getting some definition on those definitions. Here's the deal. Tendinopathy is an umbrella term used to describe any issue in a tendon, pathy being the Greek root for disease or disorder. An itis refers to inflammation, and an osis indicates degeneration. So tendinitis is an inflammation of the tendon, while tendinosis would be a degeneration of the tendon. And they both fall under the tendinopathy umbrella. You can imagine how an itis might lead to an osis, and it often does. Inflammation and its trademark redness, swelling, and inflammatory chain reaction might be the warning signal that a stubborn tennis player might just push through, causing a little degeneration. And once that happens, realigning that chaos is a big old test of patience. Lateral epicondylitis is technically the inflammation and wearing down of the tissues at the common extensor tendon that attaches to the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. This bony landmark star of the show lives on the humerus and not on either of the forearm bones. It is, well, let's put it this way. If someone stood in front of you and put their hand on their same side shoulder and pointed their elbow at you, the bone pointing at you is the olecranon process of the ulna. The bump to the inside of that is the medial epicondyle. The bump to the inside of that is the medial epicondyle. And the bump to the outside of that is the lateral epicondyle. Both of those being on the humerus, the big bone that lives in your upper arm. Point being, there are a lot of bumps at your elbow, not just your elbow. And bumps on bones are usually there for muscles to grab onto. The whole common extensor tendon thing should be a good indicator as to what is going on here. The fact that we have a bony bump shared by multiple tendinous attachments of a handful of muscles means that there is a lot of pull on this little spot. And a lot of things pulling at one point can be straining, to say the least. So the muscles that attach here travel down the posterior forearm and insert into various aspects of the dorsal, wrist, and hand bones, meaning they not only cross over the elbow, but they also cross over the wrist and fingers, depending on the muscle. Their main actions are to extend the wrist and the fingers, like how you would hold your hand to admire your freshly manicured fingernails. But if you notice, they don't really influence what the elbow does. Flexion and extension of the elbow happen with contractions of the upper arm muscles, the biceps and triceps, etc. So why are all of these forearm movers of the wrist and hand presenting as pain at the elbow? Why isn't there more of a posterior carpal tunnel thing happening here? Excellent question. If you look at the medial aspect of the forearm, the part that has less hair and gets less sun, there is a whole other compartment here that holds the antagonists to the extensors. You know them as the flexors. They are similar to the extensors in that they share a common tendon at an epicondyle of the humerus. They reach across the wrist to create movement of the wrist and fingers, and they get weighed down by a similar dysfunction. Only on this side of the olecranon process, it's called golfer's elbow. But here's the big difference. The flexors flex and the extensors extend. Okay, well, I know this is mind-blowing information. Stay with me here. When one holds a golf club and swings at a golf ball, the wrist should remain relatively straight. The fingers are gripping the club, but the wrist needs to stay nice and long at the moment when the club whacks that little ball off the tee. When one holds a tennis racket, and in this instance more specifically for a backhand swing, the fingers are flexing again to hold onto the racket, and the wrist, again, needs to remain straight and solid at the moment the racket hits the ball. So while neither action is requiring actual flexion or extension per se, in golf, the flexor muscles are resisting wrist extension, and in tennis, the extensors are resisting wrist flexion. Both issues involve the grip of a tool and the force of a ball hitting that tool. But the force of the ball in either scenario is requiring the muscles at hand to stabilize things and keep the wrist straight. The flexors are preventing the handle of the golf club from pushing the wrist back into extension, and the extensors are doing the opposite, stopping the handle of the racket from tipping the wrist into flexion. In both instances, what we are looking at is an isometric contraction. So the muscle or muscles are contracting, but there's no movement, kind of like what happens when we do a plank. And the thing about isometric contractions is that it is ultimately an effort to create stability. That's why planks are such a good exercise. They strengthen our stabilizers. But because we are human and not robots, being stable doesn't equate to perfect stillness, especially in the wake of a ball hitting a tool that you are gripping with a large number of muscles and joints that are highly movable. This group of muscles then, the extensors of the forearm, namely the extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis, the extensor digitorum, and the extensor carpi ulnaris, are all working together to brace themselves for the impact of the ball on the racket, isometrically contracting to prevent flexion of the wrist, and holding a force that collectively tugs at that common tendon near the elbow. Especially if there is a lack of strength in said muscles, this creates a pull, a strain, a little irritation, and a little repeated irritation begets a little inflammation, and a little inflammation over time can lead to degeneration. The word for this, if you recall, is tendinitis. A tendon is a form of connective tissue. This particular brand of connective tissue has highly organized type 1 collagen fibers that transmit the force of the muscle it extends from to the bone it's grabbing onto. What is found when tennis elbow is looked at under a microscope is a disorganization of these fibers. Sometimes there is an increase in vascularization, sometimes there is an influx of fibroblasts, but the biggest common thread found with this issue is disorganized fibers, meaning a tendinosis. That, and of course, pain. So tennis elbow is more commonly a tendinosis than it is a tendinitis. There may have been a mere inflammatory event happening at one point, but because we use our wrists and hands for so many things, opening doors, jars, tubes of toothpaste, apps on our phones, and because athletes tend to push themselves through pain more often than not, it is very hard to let these guys really rest. This is a chronic condition that requires more than just a little ice. In my home, with all of these tendinoses, I get to be the bearer of bad news, that the best way for them to heal is rest. Anyone who loves their chosen sport does not like hearing that they need to stop playing. And it raises some fun arguments about how to get better, because how are you supposed to strengthen these muscles without using them? Just like anything else, you start with simple. Remember that these tendon fibers have gone rogue, and the goal is to bring them back into alignment. Rest is going to be the best first step because you've got to calm the monster before it can even begin to hear you. There's a lot of controversy over whether or not ice is really helpful here, but I often find that it can feel relieving to hyper-irritated tissues, and that, in and of itself, can set the stage for shifting things. After a few days, or weeks depending on the severity, of wrist downtime, starting some gentle work with some simple activation techniques is best. Sinking into the extensors and working up towards the lateral epicondyle lengthens the muscle tissue and creates a slack in that common tendon. Bring some handy-dandy petrissage into play at that musculotendinous junction to get the blood flowing, then start asking these muscles to move. Asking the affected wrist to do simple tasks methodically is the key here. With the forearms resting on the table, let the hand drop towards the floor. Have the owner of this hand slowly lift it up and then slowly drop it back down. Repeat 5 times. Then, with the forearm flipping, palm facing up, ask the flexors to pull the hand up and let it slowly fall back into extension. Repeat 5 times. And then back into the first position, lift the wrist into a neutral position and deviate left to right, like it's wiping something off. And then lastly, from the same position, have the palm turn up to the ceiling and back to the floor. Each of these actions is what the wrist can do in simple terms: flexion, extension, radial and ulnar deviation, and supination and pronation. Once these are feeling good, adding a little resistance comes next. Go through this same protocol while holding onto a soup can or a light weight and retrain these muscles how to operate appropriately. When they have figured out how to move the hand around without irritating everything around them, it's time to dive into the deeper work with more complex activation. And what does that mean exactly? Get back out on the tennis courts and get some regular body work on those forearms, because everything is better after a little rest and a good massage.
Anatomy Trains will be holding our flagship Anatomy Trains Structural Integration ATSI training in beautiful Vancouver starting September 16th, 2024. Progressively build your anatomical knowledge, hands-on manual therapy techniques, and most importantly, seeing and understanding postural patterns and developing strategies tailored to individual needs. We warmly invite you to apply today and bring your bodywork career to the next level. Visit anatomytrains.com for more.